Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 15 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show where we look back through all of human history and give you examples of absolute catastrophic stupidity and give you lessons from that stupidity so that you can make better decisions and stop screwing up. But who are we kidding? We're humans. We like making mistakes. And man, it's been an interesting 24 hours. Derek, live on the scene. How's America?
How long before I can cuss and they don't take
right. We've got to give it a few seconds. Let's say that America has had a bit of an epoch moment.
What are we doing?
Somebody tried to unalive a former president over there.
You can't do that.
No. We listen, we've made fun, we've poked fun at his orangeness before, and we'll continue to, because I will continue to make fun of Reagan, because just because somebody did that to you doesn't mean that you're absolved of your mistakes. However, we would want to point out, do not go around shooting people. That is not a good thing to be doing for anybody, including the world right now. You need less of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's epic, not an okay thing.
Just the last thing the world needed right now was that.
Yeah. See, and the thing is I went to bed. I had an extra long nap. I went to bed at 3:00 in the afternoon yesterday, and I woke up to a new social media news feed of like, oh no, shit.
Yeah. It's like it's quite something to wake up to. Kimberly, hey, welcome to the show. Hello there, fellas. America is a shite show on a turd sandwich right now. No, I think you're thinking of the two candidates. So that would be a giant douche and a turd sandwich. That's what you got going on in the election.
Boy.
Right. Wow. I feel kind of like the way I did when I woke up. I guess it would have been 1997. I woke up one morning, woke my parents up because they needed to take me to school, because I was the one getting up at like 6:15 a.m. every morning and like putting on the coffee machine and like, hey, come on, guys, it's time to get up now. 5 more minutes, son. I went downstairs to turn the TV on, and just this thing flashed across the screen, said Princess Diana dead. And I was like, oh my God. And my dad came running into the room. What's the matter? Oh my God. Like that. And I'm now wondering, because that's how it was. It takes your breath away, that moment of news. I'm also wondering if I'll feel about it a week later the same way I did about when Princess Diana died, in that I stopped giving a shit. Yeah, I didn't care after a week. I was like, fucking hell. This is nonstop. But it's big. This shit's big. So
I feel bad for the person that lost their life, not the shooter. I mean, sorry that they had such a mental break that they chose to try to use violence to solve shit. But I feel bad for the innocent people that were there and now have to deal with that trauma.
Yeah, that guy who died as a result of the shooting died a hero. Kind of amazing, really. Throwing himself in to stop his family from being harmed. That's amazing. So, wow.
It just all around sucky, but
crazy, terrible event. Bunch of questions are going to be. So, well, I think the thing that we're both a bit concerned about is that it's immediately going to inspire conspiracy theories on both sides of this incredibly divided country that you guys have right now. People are going to claim that the Democrats did it, and then some people will claim that the Republicans did it because this guy was a registered Republican, and it's going to be a whole crazy whirlwind of it. And I've already seen like people saying, how did they get such good pictures of this straight away? It's because they have, as Derek mentioned before we went on air, they have actual photographers at these events to take pictures of stuff, and people have cameras. But I worry about the level of rhetoric that we're going to get after this. The response was good, though, from most people who are like, look, we can't have this. And even like Trump and Biden and everyone involved was like, listen, this isn't the answer. We shouldn't be doing this. We should be together and this. But like they are partly responsible with the language that they've been using over the last few years, and the rhetoric that has driven people to anger and frustration. So
Yeah,
it's bad, man.
I,
But
yeah, yeah. I remember when we all used to be a little bit more fucking civil. Oh,
yeah.
good. It's been 6 minutes. I can say that now. I know.
I feel like we've sworn a bunch of times already at this point.
Yeah,
But
whatever.
yeah, I feel, yeah, and I've seen the thing. Someone did a side by side video of the 2012 presidential debate between Obama and Mitt Romney, who I'm sure at this point are both still younger than the current candidates. But yeah, even though that was 12 years ago. So yeah, I feel like you look back at that footage and look at where we're at now, and it's just like none of this is about politics anymore. It's about finger pointing and anger, and that's just got to change. You make it about who can make the world better and the country better and do better for people that really need it. And it's not been about that for so long. It's been about scare tactics and finger pointing and scapegoats and conspiracy theories, and that's not good. It's not politics.
It makes me feel like nobody's got a plan.
No, they don't. It's just two crazy old men shouting at each other. Anyway,
Yay!
hooray! Politics. So we have a bit of a different show here. Derek's plan for your plan for the story kind of went out of the window when all this happened, and I can't blame you because it's one of those things that sort of takes over.
Yeah, well, I was going to talk about the head of the CIA who did the MK Ultra experiments that led to like mind control shit, and I figured that's probably not a good idea.
Probably not a good time. Let's leave that one on the back burner for a few months. And it's funny because I was going to talk about Roger Waters originally. And I was reading into it, and it was just so sad, really, that this guy who has such a colossal ego, sorry, Roger, you do, destroyed one of the greatest bands of all time and started dressing as a Nazi recently as a kind of a provocative, I'm sending a message out to the Israeli government, but actually you're just doing it for attention, you idiot. But and then I was just going to say, because a lot of people were comparing him to Hitler. And I'm really glad that I made the decision yesterday to not write about that, given what's happened today. So, yeah, fuck. Small world. Anyway, I've got a story that's quite long. And actually, I'm glad it's a long and it's an interesting story. And I feel like it's so weird and intense. This story and this person's life is so weird and intense that actually it will be a bit of a good distraction, and that's kind of one of the reasons we do the show. It'll be a good distraction from the craziness that's happening over in your country right now. So I'm going to tell you the story of the incredibly tough and often catastrophic life of Adolphe Sax. He's got the name Adolf, but it's PHE. Okay, just that immediately moves it away from that name. Okay. I also want to give massive credit, and I do mean massive credit, to Carl Smallwood, who wrote this incredible article in todayifoundout.com, which also has a YouTube channel. A guy called Simon Whistler. He's got like 15 YouTube channels at this point, and he does a bunch of really interesting like history stuff and biographies, and he's really, really good. They're really in depth, and he's very funny with it, but he has like a team of writers, and they're all amazing, these writers. But Carl Smallwood in particular wrote this article in todayifoundout.com back in 2019. He did an amazing job on this. It's legitimately one of the best articles I've ever read. And especially on Adolphe Sax, who a lot of the articles about him online are very simple. They're like less than 1,000 words, cover a few simple topics. I really wanted to expand on this guy's life because it's kind of incredible that we don't hear about this guy, that we don't know about his amazing life. We know about his invention. We'll get to that in a bit, but we don't know about his life. It is the stuff of epic, dramatic movies. Incredible life, this man. So Adolphe Sax, go on, what were you going to say?
I'm not. I don't. I would spoil it. Go ahead.
I don't want to I don't want to overemphasize this guy's life, but it is kind of amazing that we just don't hear about people like this, and we should. This would definitely make an amazing like Netflix miniseries, like 3 episodes. Give us 3-hour-long episodes on this guy's life, and you'd cover so much. Anyway, born in 1814 in the Belgian municipality of Dinant, Sax was initially named Antoine Joseph Sax, but started going by the name Adolphe, seemingly almost from birth. Though why he didn't go by his original name and how Adolphe came to be chosen has been lost to history. You see, at the time, Adolphe, spelt with PHE, was quite a playful name and kind of unique and cool because there weren't. It's a very Germanic name. He's in Belgium, so it's kind of it's a bit different. It's a bit edgy back then. Not other Adolphe edgy, but yeah, it was more playful, like more idiosyncratic. A lot of people would have had very French names around this area, so he went with a different way with it. And oh look, there's Adolphe. He's playing over there in the snow. Wait, what's he saying about Jewish people? No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't. I promise. So he's the son of a carpenter and who would go on to become an eventual master instrument maker, Charles Sax. Adolphe was surrounded by music from a very early age, becoming especially proficient at playing both the flute and the clarinet. You kind of your basic wind instruments there. Sax's affinity for wind instruments quickly became apparent in his early teens when he began improving upon and refining the designs of these instruments, as well as coming up with many, many more. The guy was kind of a child prodigy at creating things. Yeah, incredible mind. But we're getting ahead of ourselves because Adolphe Sax was immeasurably lucky to even make it to adulthood, given what he went through as a child. Now, we're not going to talk about like plague, scarlet fever or dysentery or cholera or anything like that, because this is like 17th century. There's a bunch of horrible shit still lingering around, and like you could still be eaten by wolves at this time.
That's where I was thinking.
Like
a bear
trampled by a horse. Like wild shit like that. None of that. It's about to get really fucked up. And not because of the usual stuff that killed people in the 17th century. Described as chronically accident prone throughout his life and mostly his childhood, Sax fell victim to a series of increasingly unusual mishaps, several of which nearly cost him his life, but seem to have made him the toughest motherfucker in the history of the planet. I swear to God, this man is unkillable.
Okay.
Yeah. He might still be alive now. It might be an Andy Kaufman situation. Honestly, he might still be alive now. This is how tough this guy is. Sax's first major incident occurred at age 3, when he fell down 3 flights of stairs and landed unceremoniously at the bottom with his head smacking and bouncing off a stone floor. He's 3. Fucking boom, 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 all the way down the stairs, and then just bounces.
See, when you're young, you're just more pliable.
You're bouncy, Them kids, they're like basketballs. They just fucking bounce off everything. It's kind of crazy.
3 flights, though.
3 flights. Oh, sorry. He fell. Yeah, 3 flights of stairs.
That's deadly.
That's a lot of stairs. They must have been very close together because there's like a landing on most stairs, right? Like you'd think he'd fucking bounce off the wall and stop.
Maybe. He's very bouncy.
He's a very bouncy boy. Reports of the aftermath vary somewhat, from being in a coma for a week to simply being bedridden for that period of time, unable to stand properly. Which is like, that's kind of like how tall was the perpetrator of the crime? Oh, he was between 4'5" and 7'11". It's like, which, give me a closer estimation of what happened. So either he's on death's door for a week, or he's got like elder millennial Gen Z parenting levels of just fucking get your shit together and go back outside. Will you stop bothering me? So it's one of those two that he was dealing with. A young Sax, and that's his first one. He's 3 years old. A young Sax would later accidentally swallow a large needle. It's as you do.
Is this like a sewing needle?
No, well, that's what I thought. I was like, Not like that, like a fucking like something like that. Sharp, thin, pointy, not like a knitting needle with like blunt. He swallowed a fucking giant needle. Miraculously, it passed through him without incident or injury, and he just like shit out. Boom.
So he's like that kid that just ate a pencil the other day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But basically, incredibly, it didn't rupture or damage anything. On that note, apparently keen on swallowing things that could cause him harm. As a child, he drank a concoction of white lead, copper oxide, and arsenic.
How many times? He's a changeling.
I don't know what's going on with this kid. How do you get hold of that concoction? What in the house of a 17th century peasant is necessitating the use of arsenic, white lead, and copper oxide? How big are the fucking rats?
Yeah, well, his dad was a carpenter and also a chemist.
There you go. Yeah, it's the carpentry thing. It's probably a bunch of stuff to treat wood. So he just like, and he lived totally fine. He drank arsenic and fucking lead, and he's fine. I mean, this sounds like the origin story of a superhero.
Yeah,
at this point, basically. As a stupid child, Adolphe Sax drank arsenic and lead, and he transformed into poison piss man. But like, he's fine. He swallowed a needle and drunk a bunch of shit, and he's totally fine. In another incident, Sax accidentally Sax accidentally fell onto a burning stove. How high up was he? And what is he doing in the kitchen, falling onto a stove that fucking big?
He was dancing on the counters, I guess.
Top of an armoire or something, and just fucking plummets down.
Playing floor is lava.
Yeah, that's what it was. Although he landed on the oven is lava. The stove also had a cast iron skillet and boiling oil in it. And he reportedly received severe burns to his side. Luckily, he seemingly avoided infection that can sometimes follow burns like this, though part of his body was forever scarred. I mean, he's burned his insides and outsides at this point. It's a fucking, like, he's a kebab.
Goodness.
Poor kid.
How old is he now?
He's like 10.
Oh, my.
How is he not dead? But it gets worse, unbelievably. Perhaps the closest he ever came to dying, I mean, he basically died here, occurred when he was actually 10. So a few months later, he fell into a river. Now, there's nothing unusual. People fall into rivers all the time. This kid couldn't swim. The river had a really strong tide, and it was pulling him out to sea. The fact was not discovered until a random villager observed Sax floating face down near a mill, heading out to the open ocean.
Fuck. Wandered on down the river.
Yeah, just
nobody noticed.
No, what's that? It's probably just reeds. Floating face down, heading out to the open ocean. He was promptly plucked from the river, and this is quite a jump. This plucked out of the river, later regained consciousness. I feel like there's an in between there that we're missing.
Yeah, like how long was he face down? How far down the river did he get?
How full were his lungs of water?
Like how many times has he died and come back?
He's a zombie at this point, or a genuinely like immortal, because this is in the days before CPR. So I mean, people would maybe have slapped him around the face a little bit, but nobody knew how to resuscitate anyone. That wasn't even a thing. So I'm assuming they slapped him a bit and put him to bed. And he was like Jon Snow, just fucking, like coming back to life. Fucking White Walker over here. Holy shit.
Wow.
He's 10. He's landed on a stove. He swallowed a needle. He swallowed a bunch of poisonous shit. He's bounced down half the fucking stairs in Belgium, and he's basically drowned in a river. I don't know how. And again, it's not over. We've still got more. That's not the worst. Somehow. Because in another incident, he got blown across his father's workshop when a container of gunpowder exploded when he was standing right next to it.
What the hell kind of carpenter is he?
what is going on with this kid? Like, it sounds like God wants him dead, basically.
Or really doesn't.
Or really doesn't.
Like,
Yeah,
no,
like,
you keep this little son of a bitch.
I feel like we're getting like a kind of what's that series of horror films where fate's trying to off people?
Oh, Final Destination?
Final Destination. Fate's trying to kill this kid and it can't. It's like he's doing all these different methods and he's still alive.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I just feel like he keeps dying, and they're like, what are you doing here again? Go. No.
It's not your time yet. Get to the back of the queue.
He's just that annoying. They keep sending him back. He's really there for like a week at a time, and they're like, shut up, stop. He's that kid that's like, hey.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
He wakes up and he's like, I'm alive again.
Damn it. Yet again, like fucking Wolverine. But we're not even done yet. He's just been blown across a workshop by some gunpowder. A young Sax was injured while walking in the streets when a large slate tile flew off a nearby roof and hit him on the head, rendering him temporarily comatose. Again, second coma of his life at like 12.
He is a superhero then, man.
Fucking superhero. No doubt at this point. All of these injuries led Sax's understandably nervous mother, Maria, to openly say her young son was condemned to misfortune. I think it's kind of the opposite. I think he's amazingly lucky.
The inspiration for Unbreakable.
Yeah, he can't be killed. Yeah. Before adding, he won't live. Sax's numerous brushes with death also led to his neighbors jokingly referring to him as the ghost child from Dinant, because like he might have died at multiple different points.
Sure seems like it. I mean, got blown up. He's like Jaws. He got blown up and stabbed and thrown down the stairs. No, he didn't get stabbed, did he?
No. That's coming later. Fucking slate fell on his head, poisoned himself, swallowed a needle.
Man.
Hi, I'm Adolphe Sax. Welcome to Jackass. Today I'll be swallowing arsenic.
Oh my goodness. What
amazing.
This is insane.
It's crazy. And this isn't even the story of his life. Like, the big thing's coming now. Besides apparently giving his all to practicing for a future audition in a Final Destination film. They made the same joke as us. On the side note, Sax made musical instruments. In fact, he became so adept at this that when the young man grew into adulthood and somehow survived and began submitting his instruments to the Belgian National Exhibition for a few years running, he was recommended by the judges for the gold medal at the competition, despite the fact he's a teenager, only to have the central jury making the final decision deny him such because of his age. They explained to him that if he won gold, he would then have already achieved the pinnacle of success at the competition and thus would have nothing to strive for in the following year. I mean, that's bullshit. Give him the fucking prize money, you old pricks.
Yeah.
You know, he's like,
in high school, I guess.
Yeah. I could 3P. Give me the fucking prize.
Right.
You do back to back. Give me more. In the final of these competitions, he entered at the age of 27, where they haven't given him the gold medal. This was actually to be the public debut of the instrument he's most famous for creating, the saxophone.
Yay! That's what was going to happen.
Yeah, we go. But according to a friend of Sax, George Castaner, when Sax wasn't around, someone rumored to be a competitor who disliked the young upstart kicked the instrument, sending it flying and damaging it too severely to be entered into the competition. Probably sounded the same, though, because it's a saxophone. Nonetheless, Sax was recommended for the premium gold medal at the exhibition thanks to his other submitted instruments. So even though this like world-changing instrument that he's created is damaged, he's still got, I got like 5 more, mate. Fuck it, you know? So, right. But the central jury once again denied this to him. This was the final straw, with Sax retorting, "If I am too young for the gold medal, I am too old for the silver." Just like, that's a good fucking comeback right there. Like,
yeah,
give me what I want. Gimme. Now a grown man and having seemingly outgrown what it was possible to achieve in Dinant, Sax decided to move was in order, choosing Paris as his destination to set up a shop. As to why, to begin with, in 1839, he traveled to Paris to demonstrate his designs for a brass clarinet to one Isaac da Costa, who was a clarinet player at the Paris Academy of Music. Da Costa himself also had created his own improved version of the bass clarinet, but after hearing and playing Sax's version, was quickly impressed by it and Sax himself, and immediately discarded his own creation. He's like, this is the superior instrument. I'm only playing this, which is great. You know, because a lot of people, when they see something superior to something they've created, they've always got that sense of pride, or they feel really worried for their position. But actually, he's like, no, this is the better option. So good for him.
Yeah, that is good. It's always better to be the guy that says it ain't got to be mine. It's just got to be the best.
It's exactly. And that's unfortunately the last person who does this for him in Paris. He then subsequently introduced Sax around the town at various prominent musicians, giving Sax many notable connections in Paris to start from. Now, this is Adolphe Sax. He's my friend. He's a conductor. This is where you get the good bread. Over here in Paris, this is where you get the good bread from. And this street, only the finest prostitutes. This is where you come for that good side. Yeah. Further, not long after he was snubbed at the exhibition, Sax had learned that certain members of French government, so this is after the Belgian snub, he learned that certain members of the French government were keen on revitalizing the French military bands, which is a thing that they take great pride in, apparently, at this time, having the best band. The Prussians think they've got the best band. We have to have the best military band. Who gives a shit?
Well, that was back when you won wars by doing dance-offs.
Exactly.
In days, right?
Yeah. You and me, one-on-one, breakdancing.
Get your band.
Yeah, bring your boys. They were seeking new and improved instruments to do so, and after mulling it over for some time, he decided to try his hand in the big city. So he made he'd seen it, knew where the good prostitutes were, decided to move to Paris.
Nice.
That's
the prostitutes. He's good.
Yeah. He's like, oh, you have a lot of them down here. There's only like one or two in Belgium. Okay. Upon arriving in Paris in 1842, supposedly with a mere 30 francs in his pocket, that's a lot of money. I don't know why they're saying a mere 30 francs. Like, that's quite a lot of money back then. It's like a year's worth of rent.
Oh.
So, yeah,
I had no idea.
A mere 30 francs. Like, okay, I guess if you're setting up a business, it's not a lot, but you could live off that for a year. That's a lot of money. Sax invited noted composer Hector Berlioz to come and review his instruments, resulting in an incredibly glowing review published on the 12th of June, 1842, in the Journal des Débats. Unfortunately for him, this was the start of an issue that would plague Sax for the rest of his life, pitting himself up against the combined might of the rest of the musical instrument makers in Paris, who quite literally would go on to form an organization specifically designed to take him down.
Really?
Yeah. They hated this fucking guy because he was the best. And they did everything to fucking ruin his life. So people just don't like this guy. You know? Anyway, go on. Sorry.
That sucks. Was he like arrogant or?
That's the thing. I can't find any. I mean, he says a couple of arrogant things, but not like without provocation. And he's not just like that guy. I always go back to Oscar Wilde when he arrived he arrived back in the country, and they asked him at customs, "Do you have anything to declare?" He said, "I declare nothing but my own genius." Like, stop it. Like, you don't have to do that. Stop being a fucking show off. But like, I don't get any sense of that. Having done the research I've seen, nobody's like, oh, he had a massive ego. This guy was like the Billy Corgan of his day. Nothing like that. I don't get anything like that at all. He's just the best, and people didn't like him because he was the best. Also because he was from Belgium. And they're like, we are French, and you are like a minor version of us over there. You speak the same language, but you are not French. So I get the sense that there's a bit of jingoism going on, but also like they just don't like him because he's good. So anyway, as for Adolphe Sax's review by Burley Oz, he wrote, Mr. Adolphe Sax of Brussels is a man of penetrating mind, lucid, tenacious, with a perseverance against all trials and great skill. He is at the same time a calculator, acoustician, and as necessary also a smelter, turner, and engraver. He can think and act, and he invents and accomplishes. Composers will be much indebted to Mr. Sax when his instruments come into general use. May he persevere. He will not lack support from friends of art. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, put that on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad. So partially as a result of this piece, Sax was invited to perform a concert at the Paris Conservatoire to much fanfare and success. This, in turn, along with his former connections from his 1839 visit, where he was like, oh, prostitutes, ended up seeing Sax making many friends, quickly among them certain prominent musicians and composers impressed with his work. All this, in turn, was saw Sax have little trouble acquiring the needed funds to set up the Adolphe Sax Musical Instrument Factory, or ASMIF. ASMIF. Yeah, there you go. That's how you.
ASMIF.
Adolphe Sax Musical Instrument Factory. ASMIF. Needless to say, it's not quite a great acronym, that one. Needless to say, this young Belgian upstart, who was seemingly a prodigy when it came to inventing, improving on existing instruments, threatened to leave the other musical instrument makers in Paris in the dust. Said rivals thus began resorting to very underhand tactics and tricks to try and ruin him, from frequent slanderous newspaper articles to lawsuits to attempts to get his work boycotted. And, you know, I just don't get it. Like, the saxophone sounds like a swan having an orgasm. We must ban it. Like, well, it's a musical.
I heard the saxophone's woke.
It's woke. It's a leftist instrument.
Boycott it.
You got to have an American instrument, like a tuba or a lute.
Gosh, somebody said something like, "Have you ever noticed all the tuba players are fat?"
Oh, yeah. That's the clip we were watching
so awesome.
for the Patreon special. Yeah. Oh, bollocks. I've just remembered something, and I'm going to interrupt myself right now. Big shout out. I've done it again to our patrons. Thank you so much to Andrew Zavara, Jesse Christ, Kimberly Johnson, and Dilly Bob, our amazing patrons. If you would like to join them on our Patreon, go to patreon.com/history's greatest idiots, and you'll get access to behind the scenes stuff, special exclusive monthly recordings, free gifts, and also a bunch of really cool interactions with us on the stuff we do in our daily lives as well, and special yearly gifts, which I will be designing next week for one of one of our patrons. So yeah, thank you. And if you want to follow us on Patreon, it's at History's Greatest Idiots, and on YouTube, if you just search for at History's Greatest Idiots, you'll also find us on there. And I'm very sorry I'm doing this 35 minutes into the recording. Normally supposed to do it at the start. So
it's a mid-roll.
It's a mid-roll, and also we were distracted by the fact that someone tried to kill Trump. So
yeah,
I'm kind of forgiven for that, I guess. So anyway, for example, in 1843, one Dom Sebastian was composing his opera Gaetano Donizetti and had decided to use Sax's design for a bass clarinet, which, as noted, was significantly improved over other instrument makers of the day. Leveraging their connections with various musicians in the opera, many of whom worked closely with various other instrument makers around town, the threat was made that if Sebastian chose to have Sax's bass clarinet used in the opera, the orchestra members would refuse to play. This resulted in Sebastian abandoning plans to use Sax's instrument. So he was sabotaged by these people who had connections.
Messed up.
That's totally fucked up. They didn't. They just didn't like his face. They don't like this guy's face. Maybe because he's fucked up. Like he fell onto a stove and a boiling hot skillet of oil. They're like, oh my god, what the fuck? Yeah, but I feel like they go really far with this guy. Like it's an ongoing vendetta. But the great thing is, and this is a testament to his toughness, he keeps beating them. He wins every single fucking time with this, and they just going to show that not only are they nowhere near as good at him as making musical instruments, they're also kind of incompetent at sabotage as well. So,
well, it could be because he's just super lucky. And no, it can't be because they didn't like his face, because it's all messed up from all the accidents and falling downstairs and he got beat by the ugly stick. Because the picture I see, he's a pretty handsome young feller.
Exactly. Like, he's just a normal looking dude who happens to be the most unlucky Belgian in human history, except for maybe Hercule Poirot, who seems to be just surrounded by murder in every fucking story. So anyway, so in the past, and indeed in many such instances where his instruments would be snubbed or insulted by others, Sax had been known to challenge fellow musicians, besmirching his name to musical duels.
Musical duels.
Musical duels.
Duels.
Duels. As in pistols at dawn.
Oh.
With musical instruments.
Oh, so they beat each other to death with musical instruments after taking 10 steps? Or
that's what I thought, but it's not the thing. And if I'm in that situation, bass guitar at the time.
Definitely.
Fucking swinging that thing like a great sword. Yeah. Fucking right in the face.
Or maybe like to my axe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And my axe. Sax had been known to challenge fellow musicians, besmirching his name to musical duels, pitting their talents against one another in a very public way. So, like you, I kind of pictured this inferior music maker playing like a jaunty little number on the flute in a town square in front of adoring Parisians who just gave like a polite round of applause, and then Sax going, that's not the kind of fucking duel I had in mind. He's beating them to death with a clarinet or something. Done, motherfucker. But that's not what happened. Owing to his prodigious skill at not just making extremely high quality instruments, but also playing them, because he's around them. So naturally he's going to pick them up and start playing with banjos. Kimberly over here as a Zombieland callback right there, just straight over the head with a fucking banjo. Yeah. That's the only way to make it sound good. So Sax frequently won these duels, and in this case, it's not clear if he extended the challenge. However, so he just won all of these duels that he had because he's like also one of the greatest living musicians at this point, as well as a great inventor of musical instruments. He can just whoop anyone in classical music at the time, so good for him. Whatever the case, as one witness to the harassment, the aforementioned composer Hector Berlioz would write in a letter dated October the 8th, 1843, it is scarcely to be believed that this gifted young artist should be finding it difficult to maintain his position and make a career in Paris. The persecutions he suffers are worthy of the Middle Ages, and recall the antics of the enemies of Benvenuto and the Florence sculptor. They lure away his workmen, steal his designs, accuse him of insanity, and bring legal proceedings against him. Such is the hatred inventors inspire in rivals who are incapable of inventing anything themselves. Wise fucking words right there.
Yeah, dude, like he hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah. You choose one thing. You want to be an inventor. You want to be a great person, but it turns out someone comes along who's much better than you, and then you do the thing that you're actually really good at, which is politicking them into oblivion. So we've all experienced that in a workplace when you have people above you or managers who are not as anywhere near as talented at the thing that they say they are, but they're really good at doing office politics. You're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So
you're just stuck.
Exactly. I know that feeling too well.
I keep reading that banjos thing, and I keep thinking of his musical duels, and something comes to mind, and it's like, oh yeah, that deliverance moment.
Fucking hell. The thing is, and we laugh about it now, and I guess like when you say deliverance, like there's still people who get that reference, but like there's probably a bunch of people who are under 30 who don't know the deliverance thing. They'll probably know the dueling banjos, but they don't know what happens after that in that film, and just how fucked up that is. Go on, let's give us some dueling banjos. It's an amazing moment.
Oh yeah,
in cinema. You can go. For those of you just listening, we're watching the dueling banjos from Deliverance.
This is one of them musical duels that Adolphe Sax got himself into to settle scores.
This is exactly that.
This is how they happen. Just like this. And I imagine this is what he looked like after he fell down the stairs.
Pretty much, yeah. Where's Burt Reynolds?
Oh, he's back there with the pig squealer.
There it is. Is that 2 strings?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think you understood me.
There he is.
I want to get some drivers to drive this car.
Okay.
Look at that hairline.
From that car down to Aintree.
That's a man's hairline.
All right.
Barely there.
Yeah.
Be replaced by a wig any day now. Oh, that film is amazing. I recommend it. Anyone. No. I like Deliverance. I think it's a great film. I really recommend people go and watch it. But there is one scene in particular that is, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that's fucked up in it, but that scene, you know the one I'm talking about if you've seen it. Be prepared for some pretty intense violence of the sexual kind. So yeah, really quite intense film. Really good, but intense. Anyway, so back to Adolphe Sax and him whooping people in musical duels.
Just like that one.
Just like that. Like, who won that? I think the kid wins it in the end, basically. His audacious plans didn't help matters. So this is possibly where the arrogance comes in. As noted, when he got to Paris, one of the things he had hoped to accomplish was to land a rather lucrative contract with the French military to see his instruments alone used by them. That's quite a lot of instruments being sold right there. Centerpiece to this, he hoped, was a new and extremely innovative saxophone. So that's a Simpsons reference, yeah. While it seems commonplace today, a lot of ways the saxophone was revolutionary at the time, effectively combining major elements of the woodwind families with the brass. As Berlioz would note of the saxophone in his review of it, it cries, sighs, and dreams. It possesses a crescendo and can gradually diminish its sound until it's only an echo of an echo of an echo, until its sound becomes crepuscular. The timbre, these words, the timbre of the saxophone has something vexing and sad about it in the high register. The low notes, to the contrary, are of a grandiose nature. One could say pontifical. For works of a mysterious and solemn character, the saxophone is, in my mind, the most beautiful low voice known to this day. Enter Careless Whisper by George Michael. Yeah,
very nice.
kind of. Yeah, I think the saxophone was ruined by the 80s.
Yeah, well, it's also, it's ruined for me by when I play it. It sounds like a cat dying, a little bit, I think, or a rabbit.
I always
on a rabbit.
Sorry, what's that?
You ever stepped on a rabbit? That's what it sounds like when I play a saxophone.
I've never stepped on a rabbit. I have been pissed on by one.
I was just like, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but
particularly dark night. No, it was a petting zoo, and I petted this rabbit, and it seemed to be really like enjoying it. It was like kind of nuzzling into my hand, and it pissed on my foot.
Very nice.
So maybe I'm accepted. Who knows? But
You're part of the Rabbit Kingdom now.
You are our leader here. Fucking hell. Exactly when Sax first publicly debuted the saxophone to the world isn't clear, with dates as early as 1842 sometimes being thrown around. However, we do know that during one of his earliest performances with the instrument at the Paris Industrial Exhibition in 1844, Sax played a rousing solo from behind a large curtain, kind of like the Gorillas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you're wondering why? Well, Sax was so paranoid about his instrument's design being copied, and as he hadn't patented it yet, decided that the best way to avoid this was to simply not let the public see what it looked like. So you got a kind of a Wizard of Oz situation.
Yeah.
Pay no attention to the man killing a cat behind this curtain. Basically, this brings us to the military, and as noted previously, the French military was languishing in disgrace, unlike today when the French marching bands are knocking out banger after banger, I guess. Keen to revolutionize in the name of patriotism, the French government created a commission to explore ways to reform the military bands in innovative ways. Just fucking get rid of them. 2 months.
But what are you going to have your dance battles too?
I guess, that's just like a couple of decks, Jam Master J, maybe Mixmaster Mike.
Right.
That's what you need.
Digital age.
A couple of turntables, 2 months after announcing this to the world and inviting manufacturers to submit their instruments for potential use by the military, a concert of sorts was put on in front of a crowd of 20,000 people in Paris on April 22nd, 1845. That's a big get-together right there, We're about to get ruled over by Napoleon. We should have a get together before that happens. Last chance to have a bit of fun for a while. Two bands would perform in the concert. Battle of the Bands, with one using more traditional instruments and the other armed with various types of saxophones and other modifications on existing instruments by Sax. Both bands played the same works by composer Adolphe Adam. That's a popular name around this time. The band using Sax's instruments won by a landslide. Several months later, on August the 9th, 1845, the military awarded Sax the lucrative contract he'd set out to get when he first moved to Paris. Yas, King.
All right.
Here's your crown.
Yeah. He's
Worked.
the original military contractor.
Yeah, he is. Screw you, Lockheed Martin. Now we got Adolphe saxophones as military weapons.
And
maybe that's why the French stopped winning. It's like they started using saxophones all the time. This was the last straw, however, when Sax, a Belgian no less, secured the contract to supply the French military. His rivals decided to literally form an organization who might as well have called themselves the Anti-Sax Club. That's funny. But in the end, went with l'Association Générale des Ouvriers en Instruments de Musique.
We hate that Belgian guy's musical instruments. Is that what that
the
translates?
No Sax Club. So that stands for the United Association of Instrument Makers, which it sounds less flamboyant when you're not saying it French. This was an organization to which the most prominent and talented instrument maker in France at the time was most definitely not welcome. It's just a bunch of wind instrument fucking incels. Just like, you can't fucking taking all of the jobs. They're Belgians coming over here taking our jobs. Their principal order of business throughout Sax's lifetime seemed to be to try and ruin Sax in any way they could. To begin with, adopting the age-old practice of if you can't beat them, sue them. A long-running tactic by the organization was simply to tie up Sax's resources, time, and energy in any way possible in court. So it's still been done to this day. When people are trying to sue, and your lawyer, usually in America, will be like, they'll just tie you up for years in court and paperwork, and they'll try and cost you out, and it's not worth it. Just settle, or just don't bother. Like that's fucked. I don't know why. The first legal action of the group was to challenge Sax's patented application of the saxophone, initially claiming, somewhat bizarrely, the instrument as described in the patent didn't technically exist. He's just interfering with a swan. It's not a musical instrument. He's not playing anything.
We haven't seen it. He plays it behind a curtain like some sort of wizard.
It's a magical thing. It's not real. He's a magician. Burn him at the stake. When that failed, they claimed that the instrument was unmusical. So it did exist, but it's unmusical now. And that in any event, Sax had simply modified designs from other makers. This is so fucked. They then presented various other instruments they had preceded it as examples, none of which the court agreed were similar enough to the saxophone to warrant granting a patent. Look, it's a penny whistle. Look, it's a little saxophone. No, it's not.
So by that token, then a viola is basically just a really big violin.
Exactly. Like you can't. Fuck you. Yeah, that's kind of like these nuisance lawsuits that you see in the music industry that are filed by like big copyright holders and families of long dead musicians who might be slightly responsible for their death, but we won't get into that. You don't own melody or a specific melody. You know, maybe if something's really similar, like the Vanilla Ice thing was cut and dry, like he stole that from Queen. Like that was super straightforward. But Marvin Gaye's family do not own melodies that he took from back in the day from blues musicians and other Motown artists and repurposed for his own stuff. I mean, I love Marvin Gaye's music, but it's not all 100% original Marvin Gaye work. It's great, but he's been influenced by people as well. You can't sue for that.
Yeah.
Just let people make music. Leave Ed Sheeran alone. Next up, they claimed that the exact design had long existed before, made by other manufacturers in other countries, and that Sax was falsely claiming it as his own. This is interesting. To prove this, the group produced several literally identical instruments to Sax's own saxophone, bearing a foreign manufacturer's markings, and supposedly made years before. The truth was, they had simply purchased saxophones from Sax's own company and sent them to foreign workshops where Sax's labeling had been removed and replaced with the shop's own thing. And then they'd like got a bunch of tea bags and made it look older and like worn it down a little bit, some sandpaper and just worn it down a bit.
That's so shady.
That's so fucking dodgy. These people, while they're putting all of their time into this, could they not be making better musical instruments?
Right. Yeah. Why? Like, oh my goodness.
Spending
like, just
so much
do
time
better.
fucking with this guy. Yeah. Just like instead of putting all of your time and effort, could you not just simply get better? And I bet one of them said that to them, and then they beat him to death with a musical instrument or something. Because
probably, or they boycotted him and ran him out of town.
They are not. I'll put it now. They get more and more desperate, and it's ridiculous. Unfortunately for these assholes, the ruse was discovered and they had to come up with a new strategy. They weren't thrown in jail for perjury. They were just like, naughty boys, lying shits. They then claimed that since Sax had been very publicly played the instrument on several occasions, it was no longer eligible for patent. What? Make your fucking mind up. 5 minutes ago, it didn't exist.
Yeah, they're just grasping at straws. They're just flailing wildly.
Totally making shit up. At this point, fed up with the whole thing, an infuriated Sax countered by withdrawing his patent application. This is the most fucking baller move I've ever seen in my life. He withdrew his patent application, giving other instrument makers permission to make a saxophone if they had the skill. He gave his rivals a year to have access to his instrument, in which time they had plenty of opportunities to produce superior saxophones, and if they did, he'd give up the patent. Nobody came even close to replicating his instrument with any quality. Shortly before the year was up, no challenger apparently capable. He then resubmitted his patent application, and this time it was quickly granted on June the 22nd, 1846. Fucking amazing move right there.
I definitely learned something right now already, because I had no idea the saxophone was so young.
Yeah, like 170 years old.
Like,
that's
I mean,
kind of crazy.
Seems old, but I mean, feels really young compared to, instruments.
especially things like flutes, which you take a piece of wood and like hollow it out and put a bunch of holes in the top of it. You got a flute, like that's been around for thousands upon thousands of years. But the saxophone, I guess, because like you have to mold it and shape it, and it has to be quite smooth, and like it requires quite a lot of working. It's not a straightforward instrument. You can't just like get strings and pull them taut and then just pluck them. It's complicated.
Yeah, it is. I never really even thought about it before. It definitely is.
Yeah, and the fact that they recognized that this thing is revolutionary and they wanted to sabotage it as quickly as possible instead of just embracing it and using it for a launching pad for other wind instruments that they could invent. Like, oh, I'm just going to modify this, make it bigger, change this, and then like, boom, you got a new instrument. I'm going to patent that, and you got a rival to it. They're just like, fuck it, we're going to stifle it, and that's bullshit.
Right.
So he was like, okay, go ahead. If you think you can do better than me, go ahead. I'll give you a year. If you can make it better than me, you can have the patent. Nobody did. He was like, right, this motherfucker's mine now.
Yeah.
So good for him, Adolphe Sax. But he's humiliated them multiple times at this point. Apparently not content with just trying to metaphorically ruin his life and business. At one point, Sax's workshop mysteriously caught fire. In an unknown assassin. Okay, maybe we don't talk about this one. Fired a pistol at one of Sax's assistants, thinking it was Sax. So they are literally trying to off him at this point. Oh man, I really wish I had this. I hadn't written this yesterday. It's too late now. With it being rumored that the United Association of Instrument Makers was behind both of these things. So they're desperate now. They are literally trying to kill him.
Jeez.
Over a saxophone. It's crazy. He's the Stradivarius of wind instruments, and they're like, no, we can't have it. He has to go. Whether true or not, things took a turn for the worse for Sax after King Louis Philippe fled the country in 1848. In the aftermath of the revolution, and with many of Sax's high-placed friends now ousted or dead, the United Association of Instrument Makers were able to simultaneously petition to have Sax's contract with the military revoked because it didn't exist anymore, the military. It was now a revolutionary army. And by 1849, they were able to have his patents for the Bugles Cylindre and the Saxa Tromba, whatever, likewise revoked, freeing his rivals to make the instruments themselves. They also attempted to have his patent for the saxophone squashed, but were unsuccessful on that one. I absolutely hate these people.
Yeah, they kind of suck.
They really suck. And to have this many people as this focused on sabotaging your life is kind of crazy for no reason, really. Like, I can't find a slight where he's like, you're all shit, I'm the best. Like, he didn't say that. Except when they started to fuck with him, and he was like, okay, try and do better.
Yeah.
Like, that's him coming back to them. Anyway, Sax.
Seems like a legitimate opportunity, too, though.
Yeah, exactly. He gave you an in to stop fucking around, and you couldn't take it. So, Sax, not one to take this sitting down, appealed, and after a 5-year legal battle, the Imperial Court of Rouen finally concluded the matter, siding with Sax and reinstating all of his patents, as well as ordering the association to pay damages for the significant loss of revenue in the years that the legal battle had raged. Finally, he's getting his revenge. Nevertheless, before this happened, sadly, in 1852, Sax found himself financially ruined after years and years of them fucking with him, burning his studio down, trying to kill him. He must have been a major asshole in a past life. Yeah, it can't. I mean, we don't want to think it's just because they're jealous of him, but what other explanation is there at this point? There doesn't seem to be any evidence to the contrary. Did he fuck all their wives?
That's what I was just about to say. It had, or their mothers. One of the two. He's just running around. Yeah, just banging wives and mothers.
Well, if they weren't hanging out with them, maybe, who knows? And oh, that's not fair. My wife slept with that guy and he had oil on his face when he was a kid. I'm going to ruin him.
Man.
Anyway, we're just like, we're trying to think of a reason why this is happening and we can't come up with it. Anyway, it's about to get a bit fucked up for this guy. His final downfall actually came thanks to his friends. During this time, as noted, Sax was fighting various legal battles, had lost his military contract. His factory had been burnt down by someone and was otherwise struggling to keep everything afloat. That's when a friend gave him 30,000 francs to keep things going. That's a shitload of money back then.
Oh my
God.
I need better friends.
Yeah, I think we all do, because that's like $1 million right now. Yeah, Sax had understood this to be a gift, not a loan.
Oh.
Whether it was or not wasn't clear. But then said individual died just a couple of years later in 1852. All of his heirs certainly noticed that the previous transaction and inquired about it with Sax, demanding that he repay 30,000 francs, and they gave him 24 hours to do so.
Oh,
yeah, that's kind of fucked. Takes a little bit longer than that, even with like today's banking.
yeah.
Really?
Well, and like, how long after?
2 years. He spent that money. Fuck that.
Yeah.
You
well,
know,
unless there's a contract, get bent.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, but this is like post-revolution France, where like people are still being guillotined. So, yeah. Maybe it's time to run. Whether or not that happened, that's a fucking mafia play right there. That's for sure. Like, you've got 24 hours. They're standing holding lead pipes like this while they're talking to him, unable to pay them because who could? Sax fled to London while simultaneously once again finding himself embroiled in yet another legal drama. In this case, the courts eventually demanded that Sax repay the 30,000 francs, causing him to have to file for bankruptcy and close down his factory. So
okay.
They finally got him, but it wasn't the people who were trying to get him because they were kind of really bad at it. But this is Adolphe Sax we're talking about, a man who had survived major blows to the head, drowning, explosion, poisoning, severe burns, beatings by thugs, presumably hired by the United Association of Instrument Makers, an assassination attempt, and literally the combined might of just about every prominent instrument maker in his field in Paris leveled against him. Fittingly for a man who is quoted as saying, "In life there are conquerors and the conquered. I most prefer to be among the first." Sax wasn't about to quit. And so it was that continuing to work at his craft in 1854, Sax found himself back on top, appointed musical instrument maker to the household troops of Emperor Napoleon III. His new benefactor also helped Sax emerge from bankruptcy and reopen his factory. Fucking Phoenix from the flames.
Wow.
This dude is unkillable.
And good backing, I guess.
Yeah. When you've got a man called Napoleon behind you, first of all, no one could see him because he's kind of small, but also no one's going to fuck with you because that man has a temper. It's at this point, however, that we should point out that is indicated by his childhood. It clearly wasn't just other instrument makers that were against Sax, but the entire fucking universe, apparently. A year before his appointment by Napoleon III. Remember I said unkillable? Well, it's about to get tested. Sax noticed a black growth on his lip that continued to grow over time. By 1859, this tumor had grown to such a size that he could not eat or drink properly, was forced to consume sustenance from a tube that was put down his throat, which must have fucking sucked at this point in history, unsanitary as it was in Paris, just to kick him while he was down. Shortly before this, in 1858, Sax's firstborn child, Charles, died at the age of 2.
Oh,
that's a couple of hard fucking blows right there. His choice at this point in 1859 was to be subjected to a risky and disfiguring surgery, including removing part of his jaw and much of his lip, or submit himself to experimental medicine of the age. He chose the latter.
No.
Ultimately being treated by it says here, an Indian doctor. Their words, not mine. by the name of Vries, who administered some private concoction made from a variety of herbs. 12 herbs and spices, to be precise, combined with chicken. It was a delicious remedy. And he was shitting through the eye of a needle for weeks. Whether the treatment did it or Sax's own body simply decided that he would not be letting trivial things like cancer stop it from continuing to soldier on. Within 6 months from the start of the treatment, and after having had the tumor for more than 6 years at this point, Sax's giant tumor began to get smaller.
No.
And by February 1860, it had disappeared completely.
Get the fuck out of here.
Unkillable.
This is bullshit.
It's amazing. He killed cancer. We need to study this man. This man is fucking like, nothing could take me down. I'm fucking unkillable. Yeah,
I'd say he's a vampire, but he aged.
Exactly. So
what is this?
This guy, I'm telling you, this film needs to be made. We say this every fucking podcast, but like, of all of the things we're like, make a film about this, this guy, it's like every fucking episode of his life, there's something trying to kill him. Make the show, Netflix. Jesus.
Yeah. Goodness.
So the rest of Adolphe Sax's life went pretty much as what had come before, variously impressing the world with his talents in musical instrument making, as well as fighting constant legal battles with these fuckers over at the United Association of Instrument Makers, attempting to thwart him in any way they could, while simultaneously the musical instrument makers behind it profited from Sax's designs as his patents all expired. So they were just like, we'll just take that. Thank you. Finally fed up with everything, a 72-year-old near destitute Sax attempted to get justice outside the court with an aptly titled article called Appeal to the Public, published in La Musique de Famille in 1887. The article outlined the many ways in which Sax had been wronged by the United Association of Instrument Makers and their near constant, often frivolous legal battles he fought in his time in Paris with them. He summed up, "Before me, I am proud to say the musical instrument industry was nothing, or next to nothing, in France. I created this industry. I carried it to an unrivaled height. I developed the legions of workers and musicians, and it is above all my counterfeiters who have profited from my work." While none of this worked at getting the general public to rally to his defense, probably because it makes him sound like a bit of a dick.
Little.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm the best, and before me it was shit. Well, actually, you can't say that to French people and expect them to be like, oh yeah, it was kind of shit 15 years ago, wasn't it? No, French are very proud people. They love their Frenchness.
Yeah, I don't think you can really say that to most people.
No.
And be like, yeah, if you weren't for me, you were shit.
Before me, you were nothing. You leave me, you'll be nothing. And it's like, that's the villain in every music biopic. You know, you leave me, Dr. Dre, and you'll be nothing. Yeah, I'm going to call my next album The Chronic. And as like dramatic music kicks in, that's every fucking biopic. You know, you leave me, Elvis, and you'll be nothing, said the Colonel. It's just, every fucking film, and that doesn't work out. So while none of this worked in getting the general public on his side, it did result in many prominent musicians and composers around Paris petitioning that Sax, who had indeed contributed much to the French musical world, should be given a pension so that he could at least be comfortable in the latter years of his life. The results of this was a modest pension, ultimately granted to him towards the end. On a side note, when he was fighting his countless legal battles and inventing and making musical instruments, Sax had a penchant for dreaming up alternate inventions, such as designing a device that could launch a 500-ton, 11-yard-wide mortar bullet he called, and we're not making this up, the Saxo Cannon.
The Saxo Cannon?
The Saxo Cannon.
Got a saxophone, I got a Saxo Cannon.
Branding.
I got some sexy shit over here. Oh, no, you don't want those ones. So that's something else.
I got a sexy cannon. It's like Elon Musk and just the letter X.
Yeah.
So he's like, I built this thing that just throws things like we've got them. They're called catapults. Right? Just calm the fuck down. They've been around for 1,000 years. He also designed a truly massive organ, intended to be built on. Yeah, I know. Me too. Intended to be built on a hillside near Paris, capable of being heard clearly by anyone throughout the city when it was played. So just good morning, workers. It's like that sort of thing. Like, fuck that. No one wants to hear organ music in the morning when they're off to work. No, fuck that. In the end, Sax died at the age of 79 in 1894 and was buried in the Montmartre cemetery in Paris. And you can still go and see his grave. It's there. This guy is massively underappreciated in human history. He created the saxophone, one of the most popular instruments in the world to this day. 170 years later, he beat cancer at a time when there was literally no treatment for it other than let's just chop your fucking face off, and beat basically every other music maker in Paris who wanted his head on a spike, and was unkillable. Except when he was like, nah, I've had enough now. It's nearly the 1900s. I don't want to live through that shit. So I don't want to see the rise of fascism. No chance. So that's Adolphe Sax. Just the most amazing fucking life.
Yeah, that's wow.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Unbelievable.
I know. I was wandering around looking for like just typing things in because I didn't want to do, like I mentioned, I didn't want to do Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. It was just too sad. The stuff that happened there. And I was just typing in like interesting artists, interesting musicians and stuff. And then all of Adolphe Sax's accidents came up. And I was like, fuck me, this kid is just like a bouncing, impenetrable, unkillable being. And then I read like the rest of his life story. I was like, oh, this is really dramatic. I hated him. And I couldn't find a single article anywhere that really encompassed everything, as well as this amazing article, once again, by Carl Smallwood for todayifoundout.com. Thank you so much. That's a cool website. Go and check it out. There's a bunch of really interesting articles there. But yeah, Adolphe Sax. What do you make of the man who invented the saxophone, who basically couldn't be taken down by anyone or anything in the universe?
I agree. I agree with what she says here. Did he make a deal with the devil to be invincible, but nobody will like you and you'll have copious amounts of bad luck? I think that sounds about right.
That's Kimberly. Good point. Maybe that's the trade-off, like with the kind of the needful things kind of thing, where you're just like, oh, I get a microscope where I can see the answers to the universe, but then when I take my eyes away from it, I'll be blind. Like, it's that one of those kind of things. It does feel like that. You will be unkillable and the greatest musical instrument maker in the world, but nobody will like you and you will be constantly unlucky. Like, that's kind of a weird trade-off there. But yeah, it feels like that's the case. Just this incredibly gifted man who nobody liked and who couldn't be killed.
That makes a really cool Twilight Zone.
It does.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, we got all kinds of interesting things happening here. I don't know how to rate him because, like, along the scale of, like, he didn't really make any mistakes other than moving to France, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. Like, I wonder if he'd moved to London. I mean, it wasn't the center of culture that Paris was at the time, but I feel like he probably would have done better. But obviously, the language barrier thing. So moving to France was just easier because he already spoke French. So easier to communicate and do business, I guess. So, but,
I guess.
Yeah, he could have gone to Russia. He probably, lived under the Tsar. He probably would have done quite well over there at the time because that was also the center of culture as well, one of the centers of culture. But yeah, his only mistake was moving to Paris. I think the reason I covered him was because it's not really, he's more of the greatest end of the greatest idiots. And the idiotic part is the fact that he just seemed to have a death wish as a child.
Yeah. So. Yeah, for sure. That is a thing. And I think I'm going to score it just based off of how interesting this story was, I think maybe, and the saxophones are awesome, and I got
Yeah.
to play dueling banjos at one point during
Yeah,
the
we
show
did.
here. So, um, well, let's go with the 65.
Sure. I'm happy with that. Adolphe Sax, just one of the most interesting people you've never heard of, basically.
You know what? Let's make it a 75 because that seems happier.
Yeah, this is a nice
10 more
happy
points.
number. He'd have been happy with that. I feel like Adolphe Sax is one of those people who I feel like if he'd been brought back to life and been able to see the influence he's had on the world and the fact that his instrument was used by a bunch of other people, it was a very big part of various musical movements for, the whole part of the 20th century into the 21st century. I feel like he'd be like, you know what, all of that shit was worth it because look at all the joy I've brought to all these musicians. I gave a man called Kenny a career as a musician who, without me, no one would play his music while they were in the bath.
Mr.
G. Yeah. So Adolphe Sax, 75, just one of the most interesting lives of any like European person around this time. And also we've got to understand this is a time of huge change in Europe, like the revolutions of 1848, which happened like in every major country except for the UK, when they were like, oh my God, are we going to have this? Build them a crystal palace really quickly so they can hang out in there and chill out. And then don't worry, when they finish coming, we'll burn it down. It's fine. While all that was happening, he was having his own private revolution in the arts and people were dead against him. And he had to have support from various people called Napoleon and the king to even make a substantial headway because everyone was against him. But fascinating story. I would love to see this as a kind of a mini series. One of my favorite mini series of all time is the series that was produced by Steven Spielberg called about John Adams' life.
Oh yeah,
that's such a good series, man, with George Washington and just all the founding fathers. Great performances, great story, great recapping of history. And
I can't think of that guy's name. The dude from did Sideways was in that, right?
Yeah. He's got his own podcast. Paul Giamatti. Yeah. He's just brilliant in that as John Adams. And even like, who's the actor that plays the founding father who is an inventor who's also on Money? What the fuck's his name?
Oh, Benjamin Franklin.
Franklin, yeah. It's Tom.
Man, I'm trying to drink.
He's just an amazing actor, and the performance is great because he plays Ben Franklin. All right, who's also in that. As like he's got a bit of a Cornish accent, and you can hear that in his voice. He's got a bit of that old English accent, and I was like, oh, that's really accurate. That's really good. So yeah, I love that series, but I feel like if we could have like a sax version of that, that would be interesting. You could put a bunch of people in there. There's drama, there's highs and lows, and like he overcomes so much, and then at the end, he's just like, just retires to have a nice pension. Although he's like a pauper at this point, but he's got like a pension. He's comfortable, lived an amazing life. I feel like that's a great story. So we'll happily take producer credits for that one if you want, Netflix. So
there you go. Yeah,
that's where the money is right there. Adolphe Sax, 75, the man who invented the saxophone, somehow survived to adulthood and then just overcame every single arsehole in Paris to become the most influential music instrument maker of his era. And boy, did he tell everyone that he was as well. So I basically that's kind of our show. And unless you wanted to talk more about your hope for the next few months in America, given what's about to happen, I think.
My hope is that we all just figure it out, get it together, and start being better to each other.
There's a potential again for your country to be amazing, and it's always partisan politics that seems to get in the way. That I just wish people could come across the aisle and work with one another and stop being quite so confrontational and angry and just America's a cool country, man. Every time I go to America, and I've been like 8-9 times in my life to the States at this point, I love every single time I come. I've been all across the East Coast. I've been to Florida, Carolinas. I've not been to the West Coast yet because I didn't have that kind of money. But like, I have never had a bad time in America. I've always enjoyed it. Everyone's been very friendly. I've never been worried for my safety. I've never had any issues, even though I've been to like some really sketchy, supposedly sketchy parts of the country. Never had any issues. And the potential for greatness in America is like all around you, all the time. And all of the reasons that people think it's not great is down to division and the people sowing the division. And just chill out, find common ground, and come together.
I think the division all comes from people's unwillingness to take an actual fucking look at the mistakes and what's really happening.
Just start looking after people that need to be looked after. Spread the wealth a little bit, and maybe stop people being exploited by large entities and industries. And I think a lot of things get better then.
Yeah, well, there is no they. There is no us versus them. There is no like big bad boogeyman. Even if you're going to say that there's like the billionaires. There's no like collective group of billionaires getting together plotting to do all the bad things that are making your life shitty. It's just like a set of coincidences of bad acting, people doing things in selfish nature.
Yeah, mostly.
And then the violence happens because people say dumb shit not thinking about it.
Yeah. And a lot of this would just be, just sit down, just chill the fuck out. Meet up in a diner, America. Meet up in a nice local diner. Your local smoke a ball. Meet up in a diner. One of those ones that has like if you eat this enormous fucking thing, you get it for free. Just meet up in that diner. Everyone knows one, and just like the person that you were less likely to talk to because they have really quite intense views, just like find some common ground with them, because you probably both like kicking back and watching some sport or going out into nature or whatever it might be. Find some common ground with them, just talk and hang out, and then just make some decisions with each other that like kind of make everyone's lives better and easier. That's really a lot of what this comes down to. Just like talk, communicate, and just enjoy life and make life easier for the people that you like and love.
There you go.
That's very simple, and that's kind of how I have and want to live my life. I want to help people when I have the power to do so and make their lives better and easier. And I recognize that I'm a deeply, deeply flawed person with like all sorts of issues that I need to deal with and issues with people, and I may never make those issues right again. But ultimately, I want to try and do my best to make people's lives that I care about easier and better. And I feel like if people can do that in America, a lot of that goes away.
I have faith that we can. And shit, what the hell, man?
It'll happen. It'll happen eventually. It has done at various points in America. I understand that there have always been divisions and stuff, but when I've spent like weeks and weeks in America at any points in time, most people are kind of, in the 90s, at least when I was spending a lot of time there, a lot of people were kind of chilled out and laid back, and there wasn't so much in the way of conflict and hassle. People just seem to enjoy their lives a bit more, and we need to get back to that. Get back to letting people enjoy their lives without fear and pressure.
Yeah, well, and then the last thing I'm going to say, that this is probably going to be a wild thing to say. I'll say the same thing that I say when Vegas happens or school shootings happen. Maybe we should make it a little bit harder to get your hands on that when you're obviously a disturbed person that shouldn't have one of those because you're going to go shoot at people.
Yeah. Guns are fucked up, man. Like, I will never understand it. I don't come from a country that has guns, really. We have guns, but like they're like usually in the hands of people that somehow got hold of them. But we just don't really have mass shootings ever, and I'll never understand it. But then again, I don't want to judge. You guys have your own history and culture, and that might is pretty much part of it at this point. So just find a way to make it work.
Yeah,
really.
that's the thing, is there's got to be a way to make it work. I was a gun guy. I like shooting. I like sport shooting. Own them. It's you got to be responsible. Keep them locked away. Don't let them get in the hands of somebody that's going to do that. If you think that maybe you're capable of doing that, get rid of them. Talk to somebody.
Exactly. A lot of this is communication, isn't it? I mean, I fired a gun. I fired a shotgun. I had an ex-girlfriend who was like into countryside management, so I got to fire a shotgun, and a big fucking double barrel thing, and I was like, I get it. It's kind of cool, and I felt something. I was like, oh shit, that was kind of. But then also like afterwards, I was like, oh, that's a lot of power.
Yeah,
I wouldn't really want that. And I understand the draw to it, but I will never understand the connection. But then again, it's a psychology thing. Anyway, America, we hope things kind of calm down a little bit for you soon, because the world kind of wants to like you. You know, this is weird to say. You think the world's against you, and a lot of the world does not like you. But actually, I kind of love America and Americans, and I want to love y'all more. But you're making it really fucking difficult, and just like we kind of want you to do what you were doing in in the early part of the 20th century. You know, we like when you're on the world stage and doing good things. Just get back to that.
We're capable, anyway, totally capable. We got this.
You
hold my beer.
Get your shit together.
Wait.
So thank you all again so much for tuning in, and we're sorry about the levels of politics that we've talked about, but it's something that we kind of had to talk about. It's a big thing that was happening, and you know, we don't wish anyone ill will. We just want everything to be better than it currently is right now, and it will get there in time. So, but while we're on the subject, so thank you all so much to our wonderful patrons who have supported us for a very, very long time: Jesse Christ, Kimberly Johnson, Andrew Zavara, and Dilly Bob. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. And if you, dear listener, would like to go and support us, you can go to patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots and drop us a little bit of money. $3 a month, $5 a month, $20 a month if you want. And there's also a very special tier now for called the Adam Newman tier, where you can give us $13,000 a month. And it would be great if you did that, and it would be a life-changing amount of money for myself and Derek. And if you just happen to forget that you did that for a month, that would be great. And if you then realize you've done it the next month, and we get another $13,000, we get another life-changing amount of money. And then you think, oh my God, I've just spent $13,000 on these two idiots. I kind of have to cancel that. And then you forget about it for a few weeks, and it rolls over again. That's a third life-changing amount of money for me and Derek right there.
Yeah. It could happen. Like, there's got to be somebody out there. There's got to be like a billionaire that has that amount of money that they just wouldn't notice, that we can get to sign up as like a joke.
Yes.
And they'll just forget about it.
That's it.
We'll be able to retire. Well, we won't retire because we'll still be doing this, and we'll be fully funded to entertain you by somebody that did it as a joke, and it'll be perfect. Basically.
That's why I have that tier there. It's specifically for someone who's like, fuck it. Let's give them this money one time, and then let's change their lives. So we live in hope. But if you want to go on Patreon and just sling us like a couple of bucks, you can do that too, and you will get access to a free gift. You will also get an anniversary gift every year, and at the moment we've sent out a bunch of really cool homemade certificates that show that you're a graduate of the Idiot and Stupidity University, not associated with Harvard. And also you'll get access to exclusive podcast recordings that are only available on Patreon, and a bunch of behind the scenes stuff from mine and Derek's life. And we share stuff on there that we don't normally share with people. So thank you. If you'd like to join up, that'd be great. Kimberly here, thanks for the certificate, guys. It's framed over my desk. I love that your certificate is framed over your desk, Kimberly. I love that we could help give you more qualifications in your life. And that's a plaque that will stay with you forever. Third anniversary gift, brass plaque. That's the next stage right there. We'll find an engraver and get you a brass plaque. That'd be really cool. So yeah, if you want to go and join us there, also on Instagram at History's Greatest Idiots, and over on YouTube, same at History's Greatest Idiots. Give us a like and subscribe, and join the 183 people who quite like us, and the ones that have hate watched us because of the Henry Ford video.
Yeah.
So thank you all so much. We really enjoy doing this, and hope wherever you are, whatever's going on, things are going better for you and will be getting better. And even if things are a bit shit now, they will get better in time. Me and Derek have both, and I'm sure you have both, been in situations where you're like, oh man, this is like the lowest. This is the worst. This sucks.
Yeah.
But it does get better, you know? I'm having an x-ray tomorrow, hopefully, so that I can take more powerful, horrible stuff for my awful Crohn's disease. And the next time you hear me, I might sound fresher than before. So fingers crossed on that one.
Hey.
But you know, that's our show, and we'll catch you again in a couple of weeks. Until next time, Derek, would you like to say goodbye, please?
Goodbye, everybody.
And we'll see you all again very soon. Take care now. Bye.